Hello, everyone. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Welcome to Morning Mindset, where I'll read a few pages of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and then we'll have a discussion. Today we're reading pages 148 to 151. Let's get started, shall we? Chapter 8, Decision, the Mastery of Procrastination, the seventh step toward riches. Accurate analysis of over 25,000 men and women who had experienced failure disclosed the fact that lack of decision was near the head of the list of the 30 major causes of failure. This is no mere statement of a theory. It is a fact. Procrastination, the opposite of decision, is a common enemy which practically every man must conquer. You will have an opportunity to test your capacity to reach quick and definite decisions when you finish reading this book and are ready to begin putting into action the principles which it describes. Analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing these decisions slowly, if and when they were changed. People who fail to accumulate money, without exception, have the habit of reaching decisions, if at all, very slowly, and of changing these decisions quickly and often. One of Henry Ford's most outstanding qualities is his habit of reaching decisions quickly and definitely and changing them slowly. This quality is so pronounced in Mr. Ford that it has given them the reputation of being obstinate. It was this quality which prompted Mr. Ford to continue to manufacture his famous Model T, the world's ugliest car, when all of his advisors and many of the purchasers of the car were urging him to change it. Perhaps Mr. Ford delayed too long in making the change, but the other side of the story is that Mr. Ford's firmness of decision yielded a huge fortune before the change in model became necessary. There is but little doubt that Mr. Ford's habit of definiteness of decision assumes the proportion of obstinacy, but this quality is preferable to slowness in reaching decisions and quickness in changing them. The majority of people who fail to accumulate money sufficient for their needs are generally easily influenced by the opinions of others. They permit the newspapers and the gossiping neighbors to do their thinking for them. Opinions are the cheapest commodities on earth. Everyone has a flock of opinions ready to be wished upon anyone who will accept them. If you are influenced by opinions when you reach decisions, you will not succeed in any undertaking, much less in that of transmuting your own desire into money. If you are influenced by the opinion of others, you will have no desire of your own. Keep your own counsel when you begin to put into practice the principles described here by reaching your own decisions and following them. Take no one into your confidence except the members of your mastermind group, and be very sure in your selection of this group that you choose only those who will be in complete sympathy and harmony with your purpose. Close friends and relatives, while not meaning to do so, often handicap one through opinions and sometimes through ridicule, which is meant to be humorous. Thousands of men and women carry inferiority complexes with them all through life because some well-meaning but ignorant person destroyed their confidence through opinions or ridicule. You have a brain and a mind of your own. Use it and reach your own decisions. If you need facts or information from other people to enable you to reach decisions, as you probably will in many instances, acquire these facts or secure the information you need quietly without disclosing your purpose. It is characteristic of people who have but a smattering or a veneer of knowledge to try to give the impression that they have much knowledge. Such people generally do too much talking, too little listening. Keep your eyes and ears wide open and your mouth closed if you wish to acquire the habit of prompt decision. Those who talk too much do little else. If you talk more than you listen, you not only deprive yourself of many opportunities to accumulate useful knowledge, but you also disclose your plans and purposes to people who will take great delight in defeating you because they envy you. Remember also that every time you open your mouth in the presence of a person who has an abundance of knowledge, you display to that person your exact stock of knowledge or your lack of it. Genuine wisdom is usually conspicuous through modesty and silence. Keep in mind the fact that every person with whom you associate is like yourself, seeking the opportunity to accumulate money. If you talk about your plans too freely, you may be surprised when you learn that some other person has beaten you to your goal by putting into action ahead of you the plans of which you talked unwisely. Let one of your first decisions be to keep a closed mouth, open ears, and eyes. As a reminder to yourself to follow this advice, it will be helpful if you copy the following epigram in large letters and place it where you will see it daily. Tell the world what you intend to do, but first, show it. This is the equivalent of saying that deeds and not words are what count most. Freedom or death on a decision. The value of decisions depends upon the courage required to render them. The great decisions which served as the foundation of civilization were reached by assuming great risks, which often meant the possibility of death. Lincoln's decision to issue his famous Proclamation of Emancipation, which gave freedom to the colored people of America, was rendered with full understanding that his act would turn thousands of friends and political supporters against him. He knew, too, that the carrying out of that proclamation would mean death to thousands of men in the battlefield. In the end, it cost Lincoln his life. That required courage. Socrates' decision to drink the cup of poison rather than compromise in his personal belief was a decision of courage. It turned time ahead 1,000 years and gave to people then unborn the right to freedom of thought and speech. The decision of General Robert E. Lee when he came to the parting of the way with the Union and took up the cause of the South was a decision of courage, for he well knew that it might cost him his own life, that it would surely cost the lives of others. But the greatest decision of all time, as far as any American citizen is concerned, was reached in Philadelphia, July 4th, 1776, when 56 men signed their names to a document which they well knew would bring freedom to all Americans or leave every one of the 56 hanging from a gallows. You have heard of this famous document, but you may not have drawn from it the great lesson in personal achievement it so plainly taught. We all remember the date of this momentous decision, but few of us realize what courage that decision required. We remember our history as it was taught. We remember dates and the names of the people who fought. We remember Valley Forge and Yorktown. We remember George Washington and Lord Cornwallis, but we know little of the real forces back of these names, dates, and places. We know still less of that intangible power which ensured us freedom long before Washington's armies reached Yorktown. We read the history of the Revolution and falsely imagine that George Washington was the father of our country, that it was he who won our freedom, while the truth is, Washington was only an accessory after the fact, because victory for his armies had been ensured long before Lord Cornwallis surrendered. This is not intended to rob Washington of any of the glory he so richly merited. Its purpose, rather, is to give greater attention to the astounding power that was the real cause of his victory. I'm going to stop there. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Melanie. Good to see you. John, Eleanor, Nicole, Reverend Noreen. I think it's Al or A. Welcome. Anybody who would like to jump into the seat and begin discussion of what I just read? I'm beginning to think I might have picked a bad spot to stop, but doesn't mean we can't discuss that which came before, the mastery of procrastination, the opposite of decision. Making decisions quickly and changing them slowly. That one catches my attention. I do okay with that. It's hard to sway me once I'm set on a path.
Let me start it up here. Sorry, real quick.
Good morning.
I wasn't prepared to jump on here, so I just...
you just did it anyway, didn't you?
I did, quick.
Get that spot quick. Well, right now we're looking at cam twist. I hope you know that.
Yep, yeah, that's why I was just turning it on here real quick.
Okay. Any minute now, Rob will
That's
show.
it.
There you are. Good morning,
Morning.
Rob. Good to see you.
You as well. Yeah. And yeah, the decision, the procrastination, it even creeps in on, I'm the type of person that likes to make people happy. So when I make decisions, it's the whole, like, where do you want to go eat? What do you want to do kind of thing. So, I've always been hesitant to like, just say, okay, this is what we should do, because I was afraid, like, well, I want to make sure that that's something that they want to do, or make sure that they're happy. So sometimes I procrastinate in that sense. And then, how that gets, you can get into arguments, you can get into, indecision, and then, nothing good comes of that too. So those are some of the things I struggle with as well, in addition to procrastination, because you're going through everything. You're trying to perfect things and make it such that, it has to be perfect before you end up doing something, and then you run into trouble. So, yeah. So, I mean, it was a great
I
few
guess this one
pages
hit
today.
home, didn't it? This one hit home.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a procrastinator in some instances. Generally speaking, not in personal stuff. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'll share this really quick. One of the reasons my husband tells me, he says, one of the reasons that I fell in love with you and married you is because every time I asked you where you wanted to go for dinner, you'd tell me. He says there was none of this. Well, I don't know. Where do you want to take me? No. Right. Where do you want to go? Well, I want to go here tonight. Okay. What do you want to do? I want to go do this tonight. Okay. And so that's just knowing what I want, right? Mm-hmm. Now, take that one level above, though, into business. And I held off for way too many years to start my own business. And it was out of fear. It was the motivation of the procrastination. Mm-hmm. And so that's the negative side, that no decision was made. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in business for myself, but, and I knew that when I was in my 20s, but, I was 44. I'll have to do the math. I think it was 44 when I started my business. And, it was extremely scary then, but I had the support of a family and what have you behind me. But I couldn't put it off any longer. I was almost forced to do it, And then you bring in, so what do we do with our business? And this is what I want to throw out to you, Rob, which is part of this reading, is now that I made that decision and I'm moving forward, why am I not any further? And for me, it's because at times I allowed people I really didn't trust, but I valued their opinion for whatever reason. I allowed them to sway me. So that's why some things weren't pursued. Okay. And some things weren't done and weren't accomplished. That's on my side, in my own business. And then I made the decision, solid decision. This is the direction the business is going. And people are responding well to it in terms of the customers and revenue generation and what have you. And honestly, at this point, if somebody offered their opinion to me, I'd just say, well, thanks, but moving on.
Right. Yeah.
So I wonder how that affects you in terms of other areas,
Right. And sometimes, and I know I'll probably butcher this, but I've read so many books, I don't know which one I got it from, but there was the example of, it was a high-ranking military official, and they were deciding on something, and it was taking them forever and forever and forever. And so, this person just came in and said, this is what it's going to be. And everybody was just like, well, what about this, and this, and that? And, and he was talking about the indecision, and, the lack of a decision is costing us all this money because we're spending time doing this and everything. So it's like, I don't know if it's the right decision, but it's with all the information that I have at the moment, it's the best decision right now. And this is where we need to go. And so this is what we need to put our efforts into. And then we can always readjust the course as we go. But at the moment, this is it. We could sit back there and just play out every single scenario and go every single, path and the diagram all the way down to find out where this will lead and where this will end up. But what's it really going to get us? Let's just get out there and do it. And I think that's where a lot of it comes into with the coaching and with everything else, is when you're talking to people, it's their belief. So, if we can help build up people's belief, and sometimes you have to walk them hand in hand, through whatever they're trying to do. And then you ever notice when somebody, or even yourself, when you do something that maybe you were a little fearful of, or you weren't really sure, and then you did it yourself, then you're like, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to
Oh
be.
yeah,
And then,
we're having a victory party. Yeah.
yeah, and now it's like over and over and over again, and you want to teach other people, and you want to, and then you want to try more things. So, it's the thing, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, but like the base of a lot of the stuff I do is on like the little triangle of belief, action, and results. And, if you have belief, you're going to step out and you're going to have action. And if you take action, you're going to get results. And if you get results, it's going to inflate your belief. And that's how you can kind of build it up. So, just go out there and do something, and you're going to have some results, and you're going to build your belief that way. But I know so many people, and like Cindy says over there, she's a detail person. So it's hard to go through and know if you have enough information to make the right decision. But I think it goes back to that example, with all the information you have right now, as little of it or as much of it as it may be, what's the best decision right now? And best meaning like taking action and doing it versus continuing. You heard the saying like that perfection is the killer of productivity, right? Because you always want to make sure it's perfect before you get it out there. And by that time you miss a lot of, the action because you're stuck trying
Right.
to, it's the paralysis by analysis kind of thing. So.
Well, and I think that's what Napoleon Hill is trying to tell us, is that first off, it's the decision you're going to make is based off of your desire, not anybody else's. It's your brain that's in effect right now. It's being used. It's your thoughts, and it's your desire. It's what your dream is. It's what you have been thinking about forever, however long it has been. You've envisioned what it's going to look like. You're just putting it into action. So before we get to the procrastination part, up to this point, Napoleon Hill has been telling us that you have to have the desire. So if you've got that, you've got the imagination to be able to make the decisions about it, to find out more, you've got the knowledge. You might have to get specialized knowledge, maybe specialized skill set. If you've got these things in place, then it's a matter of, in my view, and there's a few others, but up to this point, is what's stopping you. And we read through the 30 major causes of failure earlier. And right now we're looking at the procrastination, which is reach your decision promptly. Don't have an endless list of, this is what I'm reading into it and what I'm hearing you say, Rob. Don't have this endless list of criteria that your decision has to meet. Instead, shorten that list, move forward. If you're going to seek counsel, seek it from those who are interested in your success, are of like mind, and are there to help you to succeed. And that's that mastermind alliance, that inner circle, if you will, but also the formal type of mastermind where you meet regularly, interested in each other's success. Then you can flesh it out, because this, again, what I'm seeing here is you can rely on those people that you've invited to be a part of your success, and you be a part of theirs, so that they can help you flesh it out. How's that? Did that make any sense?
Yeah. And I think it's best when you have like a plan or something in place, and you come to the decision, like you said, as quickly as possible. So if there's just like, 5 steps that you need to do, is like, okay, you need to come up with this, immediate challenges, benefits, kind of like a pros and cons kind of list, and get it out there and just start working. But, I think a lot of the reason most people procrastinate is, again, the belief, but, but deeper into the belief is, the fear of failure. So, I like the quote that, he who fails most wins.
Right.
You're out there trying. The one example was, Colonel Sanders, when he went out, he got 1,000, I think it was 1,000 no's before he got his first yes, and he could have quit after 1 or 2. So, it's just, you got to keep going out there and being persistent. And,
Absolutely. With a word of caution, I'm going to bring it back to the reading only because, well, not only because, but because it does fit with what you're saying, Rob, is that that word of caution is you've made your decision and you take the action. You want to be careful who you're listening to while you're doing that. So procrastination can also be simply because you're listening to too many people that really don't matter. Their opinion doesn't matter. You know, every person has at least one opinion. The other thing that I like that he said is about keep your mouth closed and your ears and eyes open. Now, my view has been for 30 some odd years, just thinking, you know, how old I am. And 30 some odd years is, you know, I've got 2 eyes, I've got 2 ears, I've got 1 mouth. Keep the mouth shut so that I can keep the doubles open for what needs to happen. So there's a combination here. He's saying you want to listen, right? And you want to keep your eyes open, but you want to keep your mouth shut. Now, wait a second. So, but if I don't talk about what it is that I really want to have happen, nothing's going to happen. So I want to explore that just a little bit, if you would, Rob.
Yeah, and I think that's great because we say that all the time. I'm in network marketing, so part of, you know, the network marketing strategist part of me is we say that all the time. You know, there's 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth. So just sit back and don't be that person. And we've all been in a conversation with somebody that they just are waiting for an opportunity to speak. You know, they're not really listening. And when you listen, and I think that's kind of what he's getting at, is as you listen, it makes it so much easier. And I tell people, you know, if you talk, you're never going to learn and understand what people want out of the relationship, out of the product, out of the service, out of whatever it is that you're, even if it's just a relationship, you know, you're not going to know how to kind of win them over if you just continue to talk. So when you sit back and listen, they're going to give you all the clues and the cues, and it's going to make it so much easier because they're going to start talking about their passions and their desires and their wants and you know, what it is that's going to, you know, connect you with them. And then you can say, great, you know, I keep hearing you say that, you know, this is really important to you. Tell me a little more about that, you know, and then you go into that and then you kind of, you know, I always tell people, like with your product and services, it's not a cookie cutter approach. You don't just say, I have a vacuum and it you know, cleans up stuff. You know, it might be that, you know, somebody wants a quiet vacuum.
Okay, so I'm going to hold you up just a second, because what if you've got that happening? You've got a successful service or a product. You're on the road to where you want to get to, and you're hearing from others that, you know, you need to change it. And I'm just going with what Henry Ford did. Here he's got this really ugly car, the Model T. It's making him boatloads of money, right? Because the market is still good out there. But he's hearing from customers as well as some people that it's ugly. He needs to change it. And he was considered obstinate because he didn't listen to them. He was slow in making the decision to make the changes. So I'm just going to throw it out there.
Well, I think you need to see, like you said, you know, everybody has at least one opinion, and most of the people that you talk with, unless they're, you know, somebody that's, you know, on your board or in, you know, in play with you, I guess, you know, it's going to be a negative thing. It's going to be like, well, what about this? You know, if you do that, then this is going to fail. You know, if you ask 10 people their opinion, like say you love to make cupcakes and cookies and whatever, and you're going to open a bakery. If you talk to 10 people, like 8 or 9 of them are going to say, that's never going to work. You know, keep your day job and, you know, this and that. There's so much risk. And so people are going to be negative. But I think also to the other part of that with Henry Ford, I mean, didn't it ultimately lead to, you know, like because he wasn't willing to change? I mean, that became a problem too. I mean, I know in the beginning, you know, obviously his decision to stick to it, but I think he might have stuck to it a little bit too long, right? Because as other people were changing and coming up with other things, he really stuck to and really fell in love with the Model T, right? I mean, I think ultimately it did, but so I guess to answer your question is, you know, you have to realize where they're coming from and take some of that stuff into consideration, but don't just be, you know, a tool to the people around you. Take that into account. And then just, you know, understand where they're coming from and what their intentions are. And then, you know, still stick with your decision, because the reason why you are going a certain way is because you have passion and you believe that, you know, this is where you need to go. So if you let everybody sway you off of your decision, then you're going to have, a not so great product or service. So, I think you really need to kind of take everything into account, see where they're coming from, but ultimately, go ahead and stick with your plan and maybe, make some minor tweaks and then, you can always go back and look at,
okay.
Look at it that way.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Welcome, Peter.
Hi.
And I'm going to jump off, make some room for some other people. Thank you, Charlene,
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks for joining me. I appreciate that. Appreciate what you've said. Hello, Peter. What would you like to add?
Well, I'm procrastinating right now.
Okay.
Because I was supposed to be somewhere at 9 o'clock.
Would you like my opinion about that?
But I saw your note and I thought that was interesting. I'm going to go in there and then, but then when you went to the reading was a procrastination, I said, you know what? I got to stay. I'm going to stay here and listen to this and learn something before I head out today. So that was.
I'm so glad you did.
Very appropriate, or maybe somebody's sending me a sign saying, hey, you got to stop procrastinating.
Could very well be. Could very well be. So what do you think? What was striking you other than just about procrastination, about what was read, about what Napoleon Hill is saying?
Well, the one line that said, make your decisions quickly. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those that I've been in corporate America for a long time, and we don't make decisions quickly because there's so much. I remember a good friend of mine, he said, I asked him, he's in small business. So I asked him, what's the difference between big corporate business and small businesses? And he says, well, big businesses take a lot of time to make a decision because there's money involved, there's people involved and everything. So they're slow. Small businesses execute. And they execute. And if it doesn't work, they execute again. If that doesn't work, they execute again. So that's
a little more nimble. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think, though, Peter, it's because not so much that there's a lot of money involved. There's just a lot of people involved in making the decision, which is different than a very small business where there's only one.
Right. But see, with your business, you can try something today. You could try a new blab today. And if that didn't work, fine, I just move on. But somebody like me from corporate America, I'm like, well, I want to blab. And I'm like, what am I going to blab about? And instead of just picking something and doing it, I spend my time trying to decide.
Okay. So that's interesting, Peter, because I spent time thinking before I started and have done the blabs that I've done because it had to be in line and aligned with my own values. There had to be a reason for it to be done. Was it going to delay me from reaching my ultimate purpose? Was it going to take away from my day that I need to attend to, or was it going to add in some way? So I had to go through that's my criteria of starting something new, and it met the criteria, so I jumped in. Now I'm still nervous and scared about it, and Sean's in here and he knows about that. He was with me at the beginning. But I just, I was compelled to do it, and I did a quick review to see, and I came to the decision pretty quickly. It didn't take me more than actually probably less than a day to really, that's what I'm going to do, because I saw the value for myself, personally, and that it aligned with me and which are the values that I bring to the business and what have you. But having said that, I think what Napoleon Hill is talking about is the individual that makes the final decision. So it's whether it's a final decision in your life personally or in your business, you are the decision maker in the business. Being a part of the team in a corporation is a little different in terms of new programs for the corporation. But if you are a part of the team or the team leader in the corporation, you still have to make decisions for your team. So it could apply there as well. In this instance, quite honestly, Napoleon Hill is talking about the way to riches is these are what those who did it and the final decision makers of the builders of these corporations, this is how they did it. They reached their decisions promptly, quickly, with little input from those who are not trusted insiders, and they were slow to change that decision once it was put into place. So that's the context.
No, I agree
So
with that because
it's still a sign to you that you're procrastinating and that it's probably okay if you're getting something out of the conversation. How's that? Does that help?
that helps.
Wonderful, wonderful. But that is the context. The other thing is, when making the decision, is that you keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open. Tell the world what you intend to do, but show first. So I read that to mean that I'm going to show you, and that's my way of telling you. I mean, it does no good for me to sit here and tell you and everybody who's in the room now, and there's 17 people that have joined us live now, to tell you all about what I plan to do with my business over the next 3 months and lay it out there and talk about it and get all your opinions on it and then make changes. While in the meantime, 2 days later, somebody took all of my ideas and put them into use and they beat me to the punch, right? Or I get swayed by all the opinions in here.
Mm-hmm.
So just throwing it out. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
No, that's totally true. You don't tell anybody what you're planning to do, and you don't even tell your family members because they're the worst ones that bring negativity into. Oh, you don't want to do that. That's not a good idea. And then next thing you know, you're not going to pursue what you want to do. And I agree with you about the telling everybody what you want to do because people do take your ideas, and people will move on, and without even caring about you.
That's right.
And what you're trying to do. So
well, they have no stake in your success.
Correct.
That's why I love my mastermind group. That inner circle of people. I have this inner circle of trusted advisors. And then I have a group of people that I've been meeting with regularly who I trust because they've got their own skin in the game, but I have their success in my mind. I'm allowed to help them to flesh out ideas, to provide assistance and resources or ideas or thoughts or comments when asked, because they bring it to me as part of the group. And that's pretty much it. I can't go to my husband. He doesn't have a clue what I do. He just doesn't. He's just, I mean, honestly, it's not anything to do with anything except he just doesn't get it. He doesn't have to. What he needs to get is that I made the decision and I've moved forward with it. And I say this is just coming to mind now. When I watch somebody who tells me they're going to do something and then they don't do it, their level of credibility in my mind starts to go down a bit. So when I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, I'm putting that out there as somebody I may not be trusted.
Well, yeah, that's
just a thought. Just a thought I want to put out there because it translates to action.
That's why people who are very good at doing things, they get asked most of the time to do it because they know it's going to get done. And then they get frustrated because they have so much work to do. And this is coming from a boss because I said, I'm going to give you this because I know you're going to get it done. I'm not going to give it to Sally over here because she's lost credibility. But eventually you're going to have to get rid of Sally because she doesn't have the credibility to do the job. But yeah, and well, that's a sign to you also if people in your mastermind group are coming to you for advice and what should I do next, that means they value your opinion. So you put yourself up at a higher standard than most everybody else. Well,
I think I see what you're saying. As a member of a mastermind group, it's a trusted seat. Okay, so let me finish my typing. I can't do two things at once. All right, I'm going to say it out loud. Seats are open if anybody wants to join the discussion. That's all I was going to type. So I was vetted before I was allowed to join the mastermind group that I'm a part of. And I vet people into the mastermind groups that I run. And it's because I want to make sure that you understand what's at stake here. And it's not life and death decisions. until you get into another level of mastermind group. But you are put into a trusted position. And then, so initially the trust is given to me when I'm brought into the group. And then I have to prove that I'm worthy of that trust by my participation in the group. So yes, over a period of time, the others in the group, and there's 6 others, have been watching me put into action that which they've offered to me and I said I would. And I've been doing the same thing. So over a period of time, there's a mutual level of trust and credibility, and we're peers. We're all here. Compared to somebody else, we may be up here, we may down here, but that's not the important part of when we gather. It's that we are trusted advisors. And even if you give me lousy advice, it is sincere when you give it. Doesn't mean I have to take it. And so that to me is the value of having these trusted advisors. I mean, I've got a gal that I can call. She's an informal business coach. I can call her right now and say, this is the issue. I'm not quite sure what to do. Can you help me out? Let's talk about it. This is what I recommend you do. And it just doesn't sit right. It doesn't mean I have to take it, but I can get it to somebody, put it in front of another set of eyes, and I value what she says because sometimes it gives me another perspective, whether I act on what was recommended or not. Then I have an actual business coach who has been guiding me, and this is one of the things we're working on is procrastination. It's my personal growth thing.
Oh, I know you admit it.
Oh, yeah, I have no problem admitting it. I have no problem. There are some things that I am slow to do, and it's based on fear. And so he's a trusted advisor, and we meet regularly, so he's been nudging me. And the more he nudges me, and he knows how I work, he gives me exercises that I can actually do, which bring me closer, and I'm starting to do the things I've been procrastinating about. So there's a variety of things at play, but I think the important point that I want to take away from what we read is that I have my desire, I have written out what I want, the vision of what I want to be, what my business is to be, the money that I'm working towards, and I have a select group of people that I trust to help me succeed in getting there. And I'm not listening to everybody else, which I've done before, where, because I'll be ruminating on an idea. This is before I started my business, and the poo-pooing or the, why would that work? How in the world would that work? And allowing them to tell me that it wasn't going to work, which really means that it wasn't my desire to do it anyway. I didn't want it bad enough. That's what I've learned. Having now been a business owner, putting things into place, I have now realized I just didn't want it bad enough. What I've got now, I want bad enough. So that's having that trusted circle to have around me.
Awesome.
So again, just thoughts, putting it out there. That's what we're here for, right?
That's it.
I talk too much. We got a seat here. Come on, join me and Peter, and get in the seat, because it always worries me when it goes dead silent in comments. Oh, thank you, Ha. Save me. Save me from myself.
Good morning, Charlene. Good
morning, Ha.
Yeah. Okay, so here are my 2 senses. Procrastination is to me, that is the result of I try to avoid to doing something. And, the reason, if you look and just start to peel it, and then why you want to avoid something, because I have a fear of doing something. So that is the one thing. And when Peter mentioned that, I don't want to share my idea because people will steal my idea. The truth of the matter is people have full of ideas. Sometimes they not even follow up with their own ideas. So I have no fear of that. But when we share our decision or our informations, other people know almost absolutely nothing about your capability, your talent, your gift. and your resources. And they will say to you, yeah, they're like, you cannot do that. What do they know? See, making the decision with the confidence, know what you know, and go for it. And then, and I have no problem making the decision and follow up. Then I have to have a plan to work on that plan, and then I will I review it, and I correct the course as needed. That's what Henry Ford's the idea that when you make the decision, you make it quickly, but you change slowly. I jump on ship and I start to gear to the direction that I want. If I see that the wind blows a little bit harder in the direction I want to go, I might want to adjust myself, because that is I need to do, because I believe in myself. I have the confidence in myself when I'm making that decisions. And I have a boss some time ago. He said to me, I'm very daring. I'm making the decision. He said, hard style is making the decision and beg for forgiveness later. Because when things need to be done, I will, because I need to take charge. I need to making the decision. Because if you're going to say, okay, who doing what, then nobody want to come up with anything. And when
somebody has to step in and
somebody have to step in. And when we're talking about the idea, go to the restaurant. If you said, oh, where do you want to go? And they can talk about that. But if you said, okay, let's go to the Not Your Average Joe, then somebody will jump up and say, oh, no, maybe you should go to Patucci. But until you say something, somebody will say something.
And still it's the leadership position, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still it's the leadership position. Yes. Good stuff, huh? So one of the exercises that I've taken people through is, go ahead and tell me what's the worst thing that can happen. Get it out there. Tell me what's the worst thing that can happen. And I don't care what you think the worst thing is. It's what you think the worst thing is, right? So whatever it is, get it out in the open, put it in the light, then let's talk about it to see if that's something that really can happen. And if it can, and if it's a reality, then what can you do now to mitigate the risk of it happening? And sometimes I've noticed that that's really all somebody needs, is to understand that you can prevent, to an extent, you can prevent the worst thing from happening. But it has to be out there. You have to talk about it. You got to get it out of your head.
Right.
And you have to get it out of your head to somebody, and that's why I so value the people that I have in my circles now, is because I didn't have that at one time. And it was easy to have things ruminate and ferment and do all the bubbling up in the head, right? So to have somebody that's willing to talk with you and to offer their ears so that you can, let's look at what the worst thing is. And that's, again, I'm just going to go back to the mastermind. I'm going to go back to that inner circle of trusted people that can help me work through something like that.
Yeah. Now, see, when you have enough information to making the decision, go ahead making the decision, because if the more you think about it, the fear come in, and then you will just not
talk
too
yourself
sure.
right out of it.
Yeah, it is just funny. We are our own worst enemy too.
Oh my gosh, aren't we? So I'm going to be the first to admit that learning how to make a decision on 80% of the information was a skill that I did not have. And I am so grateful that I had a couple of very, very successful business women show me how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I went to, and what it took was, can you join me for coffee? They happen to be local. So can you join me for coffee? This is what I'm stuck on. And it really was just moving forward. I can't decide to go. I don't have enough information to do it, And the talking through that, yes, you do actually, because you never, ever have 100% of the information. This is coming from a researcher. I am a market researcher. I do industry profiles. I do competitive intelligence. And I'm a digger for more and more and more and more information, because that's what my clients make their decisions from. And there's always, always, always when I hand in a project and I talk the client through with my recommendations and everything that comes with it, there's always that moment inside of me that says, I hope I have enough in there. But I still do it. And so far, it's always been successful so far. But it's because I've been taught that, and I've been taught by other researchers as well, that it is impossible to have 100% of the information that you think you need, because you will always think it's not enough.
Having said what I just say, sometimes quick decision can be suicidal. That's why, you have to have the information, you have to acknowledge. And the reason that if I have all the information, enough information for me to making the decision at that moment, I'm going to do it. But unless I'm the surgeon, if I'm making decisions and matter in life and death of someone, then I might, be a little bit hesitant on that. But, if I'm making decisions, if I fail, I tumble, I get up and I kiss my boo-boo and I go on, but I just not killing anyone. So that's why I can be very safe to say that I'm not hesitant to make any decision at all if I have to face anything.
I am getting closer to being like that. I am. I aspire to be like that, where I can make more of my decisions more quickly. Some are immediate, some are promptly within 48 hours. If they're major decisions, I always ask somebody. Major decisions mean lots and lots of money, lots and lots of time, or I can see where it will have a big impact on my immediate family. Mm-hmm. And I need time. Give me 24 hours to sleep on it. Because what was that?
I'm glad that you have a trusted advisor, somebody you can count on, and somebody can know you more than, because see, again, somebody don't know enough about you, give you some advice. It might not be a good idea. Like I mentioned to the people I work all the time, I said, you cannot expect your employee to help you to making the decision when you withheld information. If you want to do that, you want to call for their help and you want to demand, for them to offer you some solution. Let's do the open book management. Let's share. Let's be transparency. Let's talk about that.
Well, hello, Jody.
Good morning. It's nice to see you again. I just popped in, and I love to respond to what Ha was just saying, if I could, because I got some of the best advice I ever got in my entire life from somebody about decision making. I worked in my younger years for a tax attorney and a financial planner who I am still friends with 30 years later. And when I bought my first house, I was $3,000 in credit card debt, and I had $800 in cash in my name. And that's all I had. I had made this investment. I had bought a 2-family house, and I called him up hysterical before the closing. And I said to him, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm crazy. I'm smart enough to know I had done all the due diligence. The numbers worked. But I called him up, and he said to me, I don't know what you're so worried about. If you made a decision and it's a wrong decision, you know what you do? You make another decision. We put so much weight and we do the due diligence. We're smart enough to do the due diligence. We put ourselves out there. We make these decisions and then we beat ourselves up for not being perfect. So That was a great lesson for me in learning that, okay, you're smart enough to do the due diligence, to do the 80%, like you say, Charlene. And then at some point, you got to just have blind faith and hurl yourself into it. If it doesn't work out, you pick up the lesson that you needed to gather from it and you move forward.
Then what I'm talking about, go for it, review it, and then correct it.
Yep. Detect and correct. Absolutely. I watched Elizabeth Gilbert, who just released a book called Big Fear. And one of the things that she was talking about on an interview the other night was that our fear stops us a lot from moving forward. It's doing its job. And what we really need to do is just recognize it when it helps us and then say to it, you know what, thank you for coming. Thank you for doing what needs doing, but I don't need you here today, and move it along.
Thanks for stopping by. Move on.
Right. Instead of letting it defeat us. And I think that was a really great thing for me to acknowledge that it's there and it needs to be there, but it doesn't need to be here right now.
Right.
Well,
Anyway,
excellent
the fear
stuff, Jody.
aspect is, I always said that the perception is worse than the reality, because in my
Isn't
ain't that the truth?
my mind, I come up with these scenarios, and then my wife will tell me, well, that's not going to happen.
Or even better, if any. All right, so now we're going to see just how off the wall Charlene is. So please admit you do this. Have the conversation in the head with other people you're about to have the conversation with, to ultimately prevent you from having the conversation to begin with, because you've already gotten it through your head and decided what they were going to say. So it's not worth the energy to go to them, because they're going to say no anyway, right?
Oh, been there.
Okay, thank you.
Been there. Not in a while, but I used to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew I wasn't alone in that one.
I think a lot of us who work at home struggle with, just having these solo conversations more frequently than not.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, as Charlene and I know each other from previous blabs, that, having a trusted circle of people that you can go to and pick up the phone. You got to have, for me, I got a couple of girlfriends. I got to be able to pick up the phone and go, I got to get this out of my head. I just got to get it out of my head. Have you got 10 minutes for me? Because we can really turn a little tiny thing into a whirling dervish quickly.
Left to our own devices.
Yep.
Yes.
Agreed.
So I would jump off, let somebody jump in. So thank you, Charlene and
Same
Jody and Peter.
Okay.
You guys wonderful.
Bye, Ha.
And bye.
Big hugs to you, Ha. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure meeting you, Peter. I hope you come back.
Sure, I sure will. Thanks.
Terrific. Thanks for your thoughts. Greatly
And I
appreciated.
think you're getting to the top of the hour, aren't you, darling?
I am. We have a few minutes for the live. I will be keeping the room open for about 30 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
So that we can continue the conversation, but I'll be closing out the recording shortly. So if anybody wants to jump on and talk directly to procrastination, being in your own head, maybe having a trusted circle of friends or advisors, maybe talk about, did you find yourself procrastinating because you just didn't want it badly enough?
There's
How's
a good
that?
question.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Hi. I was going to come on a half an hour ago, but I just couldn't do it.
Chuck. It's a good thing you're not in throwing distance, right?
Yes. Good thing. Good
Paper wad your way.
thing. I'm wearing the hat to cover up the scars from my, from where my wife threw things at me. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
How are you this morning, Chuck?
I'm good. This is one of the, the whole book's great, but this is one of the heavyweight sections. This is the chapter where I was like, trying to kick myself in the tail.
Mm-hmm.
Because my wife threw a bomb at me a little while ago. She goes, "Remember when you started working every other week so you could get all that stuff done?"
And then you said, "And what stuff was that, dear?"
No,
Right.
then there was this.
Mm.
Silence.
Mm-hmm.
She's right. She's very right. I really like this particular part, and I did earlier in the comments. I put a link to a book. Was about From Perfectionist to Pragmatism. It was a girl's guide. Somebody actually gave me the book once. But I thought it was good.
That's the important part.
Good for you.
Yeah, I read it like 3 months later. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
You put off reading it because, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think of the idea, though, of having that, do you want it bad enough so that other people's opinions won't sway you from it? What do you think of that?
I think we are emotional beings, and a lot of our self-value. Now, I always say, you have an internal environment and an external environment, and as we grow up, as babies, everything is controlled by the outside, and a lot of times, as adults, you forget that you're now in control. So the locus of control tends to still be externally, and so you end up worrying so much about others' opinions. So we're a social environment and culture. So obviously people's opinions are, you look at your value based on what you offer to the community.
Okay.
And so a lot of times you will, that has a lot of weight in your opinion of yourself or your motivations towards acting, or in a lot of cases, not acting as well. Because, sometimes it's what you don't do as well as what you don't say.
So we're at the top of the hour. So let's finish this out before I close the recording. One paragraph, and it's directly related to this about opinions and gossip and what have you, is Napoleon Hill is saying that the majority of people who fail to accumulate money sufficient for their needs are generally easily influenced by opinions of others. They permit newspapers, gossiping neighbors to do their thinking for them.
I'll jump in. I'm not afraid of that one. True. I guess
Jody agrees with that statement. Okay.
I think that we're the girl who's throwing the party and is afraid nobody's going to show up. I think we are totally worried about if there are very few people I have met in my entire 52 years on this planet who don't give a shit what anybody else thinks about them.
Yes.
And that's what these people
that goes back to what Chuck was saying.
Yep.
Yes.
People who succeed huge don't care. They just don't care. They do what feels right.
Okay, so I'm going to interject something here, because I don't think it's that they don't care. I think that they're not influenced by people outside of their inner circle. I think those very, very, very few people that truly don't care what anybody else has to say about them or what they're doing isn't necessarily those who are attaining great wealth, riches, and successful businesses and successful positions within community. Instead, I just want to take what you're saying one step further to say that those who achieve care about what their inner circle, those that are closest to them, think of them, not of their ideas, not of their of who they are. That's what matters. So, having said that, I think it's important that it not necessarily be family, because what Napoleon Hill is saying, if this is what I'm envisioning, I've got an idea for my business, and it's directly related to working with, women survivors of breast cancer. And if I pay attention to the news and I pay attention to to my news feeds in social media and reading all the crap people are talking about, how awful it is to work with survivors of breast cancer, how awful it is. They're horrifying to work with. They're terrible to work with. I am so limited in my view of the possibilities to just those handfuls of people's opinions, the news stories, totally unrelated to my desire to work with those people, that I allow them to influence whether or not I'll do it. So I will quickly decide that was a bad idea. Instead of staying with, this is what I really want. And I only say it this way because I've since learned that, set on the path over the past couple of years of where I wanted to go with my own business, that not many people do what I do. So it could be that I could take that as, well, that must mean it doesn't work.
I think that...
but instead, it's something I really want to do, and it's working.
Right.
So...
I think what Jody's talking about is social validation. And the way I look at it is it's two sides of the same fence. On one side, you have people that feel they're guessing to see what social validation they can get for their idea. But the truly, really successful people are on the other side, are kind of, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to steer the social validation towards what I'm doing, rather than waiting for I'm going to basically define what the social validation is afterwards.
Interesting.
They're going to
sides to every coin, right? Interesting perspective of the same thing.
Yeah, what an interesting viewpoint. Both of yours are. That's why I want you on here.
No, it's great. I mean, then that's what this whole platform is about, is being able to, hold things up to the light and look at it from a different angle, because we all have something to offer.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
All of us.
So I am at the top of the hour. I'm going to stop the recording and finish this out for the recording, and then I'll keep the room open for about 30 minutes or so, okay?
Okay.
Terrific. So I want to thank everybody who's joined me on the live stream. In the comment section, the discussions and questions coming from the comments. Thank you for being here and joining me. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Let's move forward with the day on purpose, with purpose. So until next time.